Hey you! Welcome back to the quiet end of the day. Tonight you don't have to be impressive, you just have to breathe. In a moment you're walking into Knossos Courtyard, where pale stone keeps a trace of sun and gives it back slowly. You can almost taste olive bread cooling, and see painted bulls holding their fearless stillness on the walls. Fair warning, you probably won't survive this, meaning your shoulders will drop and your thoughts will finally stop auditioning for chaos. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and let me know how your day has really been, your worries, your exhaustion, or even a tiny joy that made you smile. I'm here to truly listen and offer the most sincere, heartfelt advice I can. Now turn off the lights. Take a deep, slow breath. Let your tiredness melt away, and gently close your eyes. Let's drift together into tonight's dreamlike lands. And tomorrow morning, if you still remember, send me a message and tell me what you dreamed. You let your breath slow, and you approach Knossos the way you approach sleep, cautious, hopeful, and quietly ready to be carried. The path is a pale ribbon under the moon. The stones beneath it remember sun and give it back in a slow, steady seep, warmth rising through your soles like the earth is exhaling. The air carries a thin salt thread from the sea, clean, distant, and just strong enough to make you feel that the world is bigger than your inbox. The first sight isn't a grand announcement. It's geometry made gentle, limestone and gypsum set into low walls, steps, and platforms, edges softened by time. Columns stand with that strange, beautiful swell, wider at the top, as if they're refusing the sharp arrogance of perfection. Even in the dark, sheltered corners keep hints of old color, reds and blues clinging on like stubborn petals pressed into a book. You step into the courtyard, and the sound changes. Your footsteps lose their bite. The space absorbs noise the way a thick blanket absorbs light, and your thoughts automatically lower their volume, as if the stones have been doing crowd control for thousands of years. Inside here, nothing demands that you hurry. Moonlight spreads across packed earth and worn flagstone in broad, pale sheets. Shadows gather in corners like pooled ink. Stairways and thresholds appear as suggestions rather than orders. You move slowly because the place makes slow feel intelligent. A low wall guides your hand. You graze it with your fingertips and feel the honest roughness, cool on the surface and warmer underneath, like patience layered on patience. The courtyard feels spacious without feeling empty. You can sense where life used to circle, baskets passing, oil jars shifting from shade to shade, cloth catching a breeze, hands rinsed clean in basins you can still imagine. The past doesn't shout. It lingers, soft as smoke trapped in hair after a long evening, soft as a smell you can't quite name but somehow trust. And yes, your mind keeps returning to food, because your mind is a simple creature pretending to be complicated. Olive bread. Dense, warm, scored on top so it breaks kindly. Olive oil in a shallow dish, glowing rather than shining. A hint of honey thick as sunset. The images land in you like small weights, the good kind, the kind that help you stay in one place instead of floating off into worry. Above the courtyard, stars prick through the dark, small and stubborn. A night insect ticks somewhere in a crack of stone, and after a brief moment of irritation you let it become a comfort. Time is moving, but you don't have to push it. You drift toward the frescoes, and even in low light, color has presence. a red that refuses to become brown, a blue that stays cool, almost wet-looking. Then the bulls, curved horns, long backs, muscles suggested in lines that still feel alive. They aren't just decoration. They're a quiet declaration that strength can be beautiful, and that danger can be held at a distance when you turn it into art. You let your gaze follow a horn, then a flank, then the line of motion that makes a painted body seem mid-leap. Your mind tries to label and collect and run ahead, its favorite sport, but you catch it gently. Not tonight. Tonight you practice the harder skill, noticing without grabbing. Your palm finds a pillar, smooth in places where countless hands have brushed it, rougher where weather has taken its share. You breathe in air that tastes faintly mineral, faintly salty, and you feel the warm, cool contrast of sun-remembering stone under night air. Somewhere beyond the walls, olive trees sit in darkness, holding their leaves like small, patient blades. In the hush you sense motion at the edges of your awareness, not voices, not anyone stepping into your space, just the feeling of a place being tended. As if caretakers have passed through and thought, quietly, yes, this will do. As if hosts exist here who know how to welcome without making a performance of it. You reach the center of the open square and stop. Warmth rises from below. Cool settles from above. Painted bulls keep watch. Imagined bread cools in your mind like a promise. And you realize that right now, in this ancient calm, you are not behind. You are simply here, and for tonight, that is completely sufficient. You stay in the center of the open square a little longer, letting the courtyard hold you the way a steady hand holds a teacup. No squeezing, no spilling, just quiet support. Then, as your eyes adjust, you notice the most human thing in this ancient geometry, the soft activity of people who treat welcome as a craft. It's not dramatic. No grand unveiling. Just a subtle shift in the air, like a breeze choosing a direction. A few locals move through the edges of the courtyard with practiced ease. Their steps don't compete with the stones. They fit between them. They carry shallow trays and small clay dishes, and the movements are gentle enough to feel like a kind of choreography. You watch hands that know how to do things without rushing, hands that have learned the secret your calendar refuses to learn. Speed is not the same as progress. One of them approaches the low wall near you and sets something down as if placing a small blessing. The scent reaches you first, warm grain, olive, a faint smoke note that suggests a fire was recently persuaded to behave. Bread, the kind that doesn't float away in your mouth like modern, over-aerated optimism. This is bread with weight, bread that expects you to chew and be present. You don't lunge at it, because you're not feral. You simply step closer, and the offering becomes clear, thick slices, the crust browned and slightly blistered, the interior dense and pale. A few olives sit beside it, dark and glossy, like little stones that decided to become fruit. There's a dish of oil that catches moonlight and turns it into amber, and another dish, smaller, holding something golden and slow that can only be honey, the kind that refuses to hurry even when you tilt the bowl. The locals don't speak. They don't need to. One of them makes a small, open palm gesture toward the bread, then toward you, and the meaning lands as softly as dust. Eat. Rest. You're safe. You let yourself accept it, which sounds simple until you remember how weirdly hard humans can make receiving anything that feels kind. Your mind tries to negotiate. Do I deserve this? What's the catch? Is there a form to sign? And then you notice how ridiculous those thoughts look under starlight. You set them down beside the oil dish and leave them there. You pick up a slice of bread. It's warm enough that you can feel it through your fingertips, a low heat lingering in the crumb. The surface is faintly oily, not greasy, just kissed by olive, like the loaf was introduced to the grove before being baked. There's a scoring line across the top where someone decided the bread should break without drama, and for once, something in the world is designed to make your life easier. You tear off a piece. The sound is small, satisfying, crust giving way, interior yielding with a gentle pull. You dip it into the oil, watching the bread drink it in. The oil clings, thick and bright, carrying the scent of crushed fruit and sun and patience. You raise it to your mouth and take your first bite. It's quietly overwhelming, the way simple things can be when you've been living on noise. The bread is dense, but not heavy in a punishing way, more like a steady presence. The crust cracks softly, then gives. The oil spreads across your tongue, grassy and peppery at the back, the faint bite of fresh press. Somewhere in it is the taste of leaves, of stone, of wind moving through trees that never bother to ask permission. You chew slowly, and your jaw remembers what it means to work without tension. Your shoulders, which have been living near your ears like anxious house cats, finally lower. You swallow, and you notice how the courtyard seems to approve. Not in a mystical way, just in the plain truth that eating calms a body, and a calmed body can finally hear itself. The space around you becomes even softer, as if the stones are pleased you're participating instead of spectating. You try a second bite, this time dragging the bread through honey. It clings in slow ribbons, the kind of sweetness that doesn't shout. When you taste it, the honey brings sunlight into the night, floral, warm, almost smoky, as if it still remembers the hive. The sweetness isn't a sugar punch, it's a steady glow. You chew, and it feels like your thoughts are being gently combed into place. A local sets a pinch of herbs on the edge of the tray, dry, fragrant, then brushes their fingers over the bread as if indicating you can dust it on. You do, and the scent rises, thyme maybe, or oregano, the dry hillside bottled into a few crushed leaves. The bread becomes more than food, it becomes a map of the landscape, grove to oven to hand to you. You eat without hurry, and in that unhurriedness, you start noticing details you missed when you were busy being tense. The way moonlight turns oil into a living thing. The way shadows gather under the low wall like cats in shade. The way the courtyard's open center feels like a held breath, wide, but not lonely. The locals move among their work with the same calm precision. Someone checks a small clay lamp tucked near a pillar, adjusting the wick so the flame stays modest. Someone else rinses a shallow bowl, water glinting briefly before disappearing into the dark. Their care isn't fussy. It's steady. And it teaches you, without lecture, that beauty here is maintained by ordinary attention, repeated kindly. You realize you're being guided, again, not with words, but with placement and rhythm. The tray is set where you can stand comfortably. The oil is close enough that you don't have to reach. The honey is there when you're ready for sweetness. Even the herbs arrive at the exact moment your senses start craving a new note. It's hospitality as intuition, as if the place itself is watching your breathing and matching it. You take another bite and glance across the courtyard. The painted bulls are still there, somewhere beyond the reach of the lamp's small glow, holding their silent strength. You don't go to them yet. Tonight, your first anchor is this bread, this oil, this quiet, this simple act of being fed. And as you finish the last piece, fingertips shining faintly with oil, you feel something unclench deeper than muscle. The constant need to brace. The habit of expecting interruption. The reflex of preparing explanations. Here, with warm bread in a courtyard that doesn't demand anything from you, you remember that rest isn't a reward. It's a requirement. You wipe your fingertips on the edge of your sleeve, not because anyone is judging you, but because olive oil is honest and will happily leave proof of comfort on everything you touch. The tray sits quiet now, empty except for a faint sheen and a few herb crumbs clinging like tiny green memories. Your mouth still tastes of thyme and honey, and your body feels steadier for it. So you move again, slow enough that the courtyard keeps you in its spell. Your feet carry you toward the painted walls, and the temperature changes in small steps, warmer where the stones have stored the day, cooler where shadow gathers under overhangs. The small lamp near a pillar doesn't fight the dark. It just makes a soft pocket of visibility, like a bedside light that refuses to become morning. You follow the edge of the courtyard into a corridor where plaster holds color the way skin holds warmth. Reds curve like ribbons. Blues run like water that decided to become paint. White backgrounds glow faintly, not bright, just awake, as if moonlight has agreed to stay. And then the bulls appear in full. They are not cute. They are not nice art. They are power made graceful, arched necks, long horns, a body drawn with enough confidence that you can almost hear hooves on packed earth. Even with centuries between you and the artist's hand, the lines still feel freshly sure. You stand there and your breathing automatically matches the animal. Wide chest, steady stance, a calm that is not laziness but readiness. You let your eyes trace the curve of a horn, and you notice how the painter bends reality just enough to make it truer. Horns tilt in a way that suggests motion. Muscles are implied with a few strokes, and your mind fills in the rest because your mind loves completing patterns. For once, that habit is useful. You build a living bull out of paint and attention, and you do it without anxiety. The bull's eye is the strangest part. It doesn't stare you down like a threat. It doesn't plead. It simply looks, present and unbothered, as if it has watched 1,000 travelers arrive with their private storms and has learned not to take any of it personally. You find that oddly comforting. You try a softer version of yourself right there in the corridor. The air smells faintly of mineral dust and old lime plaster, cool and chalky. Under it, there's a whisper of smoke from earlier fires, carried on your clothes from the bread. The scents mingle until the corridor feels less like a ruin and more like a room that someone still knows how to use. Your hand hovers near the wall and stops. You don't touch, because you suddenly understand the intimacy of distance. The paintings survive partly because hands have learned to keep their affection in their eyes. So you stand with your palms loose at your sides, a posture that says you're not here to take. You're here to witness. You walk slowly, letting scene after scene pass like a dream recorded carefully, a curve of flank, a flare of horn borders that resemble waves. The palette is bold but not loud. It doesn't beg for your attention, it assumes you'll give it. That confidence makes you soften. You think about why these bulls are everywhere. Not in an academic way, not in the way you'd summarize to sound clever. You think in the simplest, sleepiest way. Because some lives revolve around what they fear and what they honor, and sometimes those are the same thing. The bull is danger and beauty and livelihood and ritual. It is a force that can ruin you if you disrespect it, and a force that can lift you into story if you learn its rhythm. Your foot scuffs lightly against the floor. The sound echoes, small and polite, and in that echo you hear your own presence more clearly than you do in modern rooms stuffed with noise. You are here. You are breathing. You are not a notification. You are a body with a pulse. You let your breath slow deliberately, as if you're sinking to the painted animal. In steady, out steady. Your chest rises and falls, and the corridor seems to widen with each exhale, like it's making space for your nervous system to stretch out and lie down. Farther along, the frescoes hint at another kind of motion, human forms drawn in athletic lines, a suggestion of leap and balance. You register it, then let it drift past. Tonight you are not here to chase adrenaline. You are here to borrow steadiness. So you return your attention to the bull's grounded calm, the way they occupy space without apology. A draft slides through the corridor, cool as a sip of water. It brushes your face, lifts the hair at your temple, and carries a faint scent of olive leaves from outside. The mix, paint, stone, leaf, anchors you to a place that doesn't pretend to be simple. It is layered. It is human. It is old enough to have stopped proving itself. When the corridor opens back toward the courtyard, you pass the last bull and glance once more at the painted eye. It still looks calmly forward, as if it's offering the most soothing truth. You can be powerful without being tense. You can be alert without being afraid. You can exist without performing. You carry that thought back into the open air like a warm stone in your pocket, and the courtyard receives you again. Wide, unhurried, and quietly kind. You return to the courtyard with that borrowed steadiness still warm inside you, like a stone you've been holding in your palm for a long time without realizing it. The air feels softer now. Not because the night changes, but because you do. At the edge of the open square, the locals are still moving, quiet, capable, unhurried. They don't fan themselves with importance. They simply exist in their routines, and the routines make the place feel inhabited rather than preserved. You notice the smallest details first, because your senses are finally awake enough to be picky. Sandals. Not one style, but a whole language of them. Leather straps darkened by oil and use, soles worn into the shape of someone's foot the way a riverbed is worn into a curve. Some are plain and practical. Some are stitched with little patterns that catch lamplight when a heel lifts. When a foot steps, the sound is muted, soft leather against stone, a faint scuff, a whisper of dust. It's the opposite of modern shoes that demand attention with every stomp, like they're trying to win an argument with the floor. And smiles, small ones, not the performative kind that show too many teeth. These smiles appear briefly, like fireflies, a flicker of welcome, then a return to calm focus. You feel included without being handled. No one crowds you. No one drags you into a lesson. Instead, someone simply slows their pace so your pace can match, and that's how you're guided, by rhythm, not force. You follow along the courtyard's edge, and the place begins to unfold as a living structure rather than a postcard. You pass thresholds that suggest rooms once devoted to specific tasks. You notice how certain corners stay warmer, sheltered from wind, and how cooler corridors breathe out a faint chill like stone lungs. The locals seem to know every temperature shift, every convenient patch of shade, every spot where a person naturally pauses. One of them carries a small pouch tied at the top. When it swings, a faint scent escapes, warm, earthy, almost metallic in a pleasant way. Saffron. Not the loud, artificial kind you've met in modern desserts pretending to be exotic, but the real thing, dry floral threads that smell like sun caught in fabric. The person doesn't announce it. They don't hold it up like a trophy. They simply have it, because it belongs in their day the way breath belongs in your chest. You realize, with a sleepy little jolt, that the palace isn't only about spectacle. It's about work. Careful, steady work, bread baked, oil measured, cloth woven, pigments ground, seals pressed into clay. The grandeur is built on the quiet labor of people who know their roles, and who treat those roles like craft rather than punishment. As you walk, you start noticing the etiquette of the space. It's subtle, but it's there, like an invisible choreography everyone shares. When you step near a narrow passage, you instinctively slow. A local shifts slightly to make room, and you mirror it. No words. Just mutual awareness, an old courtesy that doesn't require explanation. When you approach a low platform, you don't climb on it, not because there's a sign telling you not to, but because the locals treat it with a certain careful distance, and you catch the cue like a soft ball tossed gently into your hands. Your body relaxes into this. It likes rules that are kind. It likes instructions delivered through example rather than pressure. And for once, your mind doesn't resist. It watches. It imitates. It learns. You pass a shallow basin where water glints faintly in lamplight. Someone rinses their hands there, slow and thorough, fingers rubbing palm, thumb, wrist, like a ritual that's half hygiene, half reset button. You find yourself doing the same, letting cool water slide over your skin. The sensation is immediate and grounding, and you suddenly understand how much of modern life is lived without touching anything real. A thin scent of herbs drifts past again. Thyme, sage, something resinous. The saffron lingers underneath like a warm secret. The courtyard becomes a layered fragrance. Bread smoke on your clothes, mineral dust in the air, olive leaves carried in from outside, and that saffron thread tying it all together. You feel less like a visitor and more like a person who's been allowed into the backstage of a world. The locals guide you toward a brighter pocket of lamplight near a cluster of columns. There, a small bundle of cloth rests folded on a ledge, undyed linen, rougher than modern fabric, with a clean, honest smell. Next to it sits a strip of dyed textile, deep red, the color of pomegranate skin. You don't touch at first. You simply look, and the look becomes its own form of respect. Then one of the locals lifts the plain linen and drapes it lightly across their forearm, showing how it falls, how it moves. The gesture is slow enough that you can see the fabric's weight, the way it catches air. You understand the point without instruction. Clothing here is not about decoration for its own sake. It's about function, comfort, status, ceremony, layers of meaning worn close to the body. You picture saffron threads being gathered somewhere beyond these walls, hands pinching delicate strands from crocus blossoms with the kind of patience that makes your modern brain feel mildly ashamed. You picture dye vats and looms, the repetitive motion of weaving, over, under, until time itself becomes fabric. And as you stand among these quiet demonstrations, a small realization settles in. You are being welcomed the way this palace welcomes everything, gradually. Through warmth, through scent, through shared pace. Through the simple permission to observe without being tested. Your mind, of course, tries to turn it into a checklist. Learn customs. Memorize details. Be worthy of the experience. It's adorable, really. Your brain's still trying to achieve relaxation like it's a performance review. You let the thought pass. You return to sensation. Cool water drying on your hands, linen texture in your gaze, saffron warming the air. Then you notice something else. The locals' attention is not only on objects and tasks. It's on you too, on your breathing, your hesitations, the way you pause before stepping over a threshold. Their guidance adjusts to your pace, and that gentle calibration feels like the purest form of hospitality. You take another slow step through the courtyard, sandals whispering nearby, painted bowls somewhere behind you, olive bread still sitting warmly in your memory. And you realize that in this place, being guided doesn't mean being controlled. It means being cared for, quietly, competently, without fanfare. The courtyard holds that truth around you like a shawl, old stone, soft light, saffron air, and the calm presence of people who know how to welcome a tired traveler back into their own body. You follow the saffron-scented calm along the courtyard's edge until the air starts to warm in a way that isn't only leftover sunlight. This warmth has a pulse. It carries hot stone, fresh grain, and that faint, clean smoke that makes your nervous system think, finally, something simple is happening on purpose. A narrow passage opens into a working corner of the palace. Clay lamps keep the shadows polite. Hands move with steady intention, and the space feels used, not displayed. You see the ovens first, rounded, practical, built from clay and stone, their mouths low and wide, their surfaces darkened by years of heat. The walls around them where soot smudges, flour dust, and fingerprints that never got the memo about being neat. Near a low table, grain waits in a shallow basket. Barley, pale and sturdy. Wheat, plumper, quietly generous. The grains catch lamplight like tiny beads, and you find yourself soothed by how honest they look, like food before it learns to perform. A stone quern sits ready, heavy base, smaller handstone on top. Someone kneels and begins the slow, circular grind. The sound is soft and rhythmic, stone against stone, a whispering scrape, like the world's oldest white noise machine. Flour gathers in a pale ring, dust rising and settling on wrists and knuckles. No hurry, only consistency. Round and round. Pressure release. You move closer and the scent of fresh ground grain meets you, warm, nutty, slightly sweet. It doesn't smell like bread yet. It smells like potential. On the table, shallow bowls hold water and coarse salt. A small heap of crushed herbs sits nearby, oils waking up under fingertips. Someone drizzles a thin stream of olive oil into the flour, and it glows briefly before disappearing, like moonlight sinking into earth. Hands begin to mix, pulling, folding, pressing, until dry turns cohesive, then obedient. A small lump of dough is placed near you with a dusting of flour, a quiet permission. You set your palms down and feel it, cool at first, then warming quickly. It yields, resists, yields again. The texture is alive, springy, quietly stubborn, like it's asking you to stay here. Your hands, so used to smooth screens, look mildly ridiculous coated in flour. The dough doesn't care. You press, fold, turn. Press, fold, turn. The motion steadies your breathing. Your shoulders follow. You notice how the locals handle the dough. They don't fight it. They listen to it. Pressure changes by feel, not by rule. Someone pinches an edge and watches how it stretches, judging moisture and strength with a glance. Someone else smooths the surface with a confident sweep, leaving the dough calm and rounded, as if it's been reassured. The oven mouth glows faintly. Heat breathes out in slow pulses that warm your cheeks. A long wooden paddle, scarred and polished by use, slides lows toward the heart of the warmth. The fire isn't wild, it's managed. Coals sit where they're meant to sit. Flames flare only when fed. This is not chaos. This is relationship. You stand close enough to feel the comfort of shared heat. Firelight and lamplight blend into something honeyed, softening edges, making time feel thicker. When a loaf comes out, the sound is immediate, a faint crackle as crust meets cooler air. The scent blooms, grain transformed, oil awakened, herbs lifted. It's the same olive bread you tasted earlier, but now you can see its whole life: grain, stone, water, hand, fire. The loaf rests on cloth, steam rising in delicate threads that vanish as soon as they appear, like the bread is exhaling its secret. Then comes the part your tired body recognizes as medicine, the sharing. No one hoards the first slice. No one saves it for later, in the way modern fear teaches you to ration comfort. The loaf is broken while it's still warm, pieces passed with the ease of something practiced. Hands offer, hands receive. The movement is quiet, almost reverent, but never stiff. It's simply understood that bread is not complete until it becomes communal. A warm piece is placed into your hands, heavy enough to feel real. You hold it for a moment, because you can feel the chain of care that brought it here. Hands grinding, hands mixing, hands tending flame. You take a slow bite. The crust gives way with that familiar crack. Inside, the crumb is tender, dense, faintly glossy with oil. You follow the simple sequence the locals use. Dip into oil, taste the green bite, touch honey, taste the warm glow, dust with herbs, taste the hillside. The flavors don't shout. They steady. Chew. Breathe. Let your jaw work without tension. Let your thoughts stop trying to be in charge. As the loaf disappears in small, shared bites, the ritual does what rituals do best. It makes the world predictable in a kind way. It gives your hands something to do besides clench. It gives your mind something to follow besides fear. It reminds you gently that nourishment is not meant to be guarded alone in a corner like a guilty secret. In the oven's warmth, with flour still ghosting your fingertips, you realize the palace's grandeur doesn't begin with painted bowls or clever stonework. It begins here, grain turned into bread, bread turned into sharing, sharing turned into belonging. You swallow the last bite slowly, and the courtyard's calm returns to meet you, now threaded with the quiet certainty that you can always start again from something warm, something honest, something made by hands. You let the oven's warmth fade from your cheeks as you drift back out of the working corner, still carrying that last bite of olive bread like a small, steady ember. Flour dust clings to your fingertips in pale crescents, and for once it feels like proof of something good. You were here, you touched a real thing, you didn't just scroll past your life. A calm presence draws you toward a cooler corridor where the air changes. Less smoke, more stone, more shadow. The palace doesn't only feed people, it keeps feeding itself, storing tomorrow in careful, quiet ways. You follow, and the floor shifts under your feet from warm-packed earth to smoother slabs that hold chill like water holds moonlight. The passage opens into storerooms, and the first sensation is scale. Not the loud kind, not, "Look how rich we are," but the steady, practical kind that says someone planned ahead, and then kept planning ahead. Huge clay jars stand shoulder to shoulder, their bellies rounded, their necks narrow, their surfaces scratched with years of handling. They're taller than your waist, some nearly as tall as your chest, and they sit in rows like patient animals resting in the dark. A few are sunk slightly into the floor, cradled by earth for stability, as if the building itself is helping them stay calm. The air here smells faintly sweet and green. Olive oil, yes, but not a sharp perfume. It's deeper than that, fruit and leaf and thyme, with a soft undertone of clay and cool dust. Honey adds its own warmth, a thicker sweetness that seems to cling to the back of your throat even before you taste it. Everything in here feels preserved, not dead, like sunlight stored so a bad season can't steal it all. Lamplight doesn't travel far. It pools and stops, making the room feel intimate despite its size. You notice the locals handled this place with extra deliberation. This is not only food. This is security. Some jars are sealed with lids and clay plugs, the closures smoothed by fingertips, then marked with impressions. Stamp patterns pressed into wet clay make each seal unmistakable. The message lands without words. This belongs here. This has been counted. This is protected. You lean closer to one jar and catch a faint gleam near its mouth. Oil residue. Gold in the lamplight. You imagine the oil inside, thick and glossy, poured into shallow dishes like the one you used earlier. It's a whole landscape reduced into something that can fit in your hands. Along one wall, smaller vessels sit in neat groups, narrow-necked amphorae, bowls covered with cloth, baskets lined with leaves. Honey is kept in containers that discourage careless scooping. Sweetness here has boundaries, which is probably wise. Even comfort is measured so it lasts. Near a low shelf, clay tags and little lumps of dried seal material rest like pebbles. A flat tablet lies nearby, its surface scored with lines and marks. You don't need to decode it to feel what it represents: accounting, memory, the refusal to trust everything to chance. The palace keeps its thoughts in clay. You find yourself soothed by that. Modern life loves to turn planning into a personality flaw, but here it's simply care made visible. Count the oil. Measure the honey. Record what comes in and what goes out. It isn't anxiety. It's responsibility with a steady pulse. Your fingers hover near a seal, and you stop again. The habit of respect returns, gentle but firm. Instead, you let your eyes do the touching. You notice finger grooves where someone pressed a plug into place. You notice faint smears where oil once ran down a jar's side and was wiped away. You notice tiny chips on a rim, accepted, not dramatized. In the quiet, your body starts to match the room. Your breathing becomes slower, deeper. Your mind, which loves to invent disasters, runs out of material. It can't argue with a row of jars patiently doing their job. You picture the courtyard outside, the painted bulls watching, the saffron drifting, the oven's warmth. All of it depends on this hidden calm. Bread requires grain, and grain requires planning. Oil requires harvest, and harvest requires patience. Honey requires bees and seasons that don't care about your deadlines. The palace doesn't pretend it controls everything. It simply prepares, then trusts the rhythm. A small measuring cup sits on a ledge, its rim worn smooth. Beside it, a shallow tray holds little stones, weights, balanced and familiar. You watch a local lift the cup, pour a measured amount into a smaller vessel, and set a seal back into place with a practiced press. The motion is slow and exact. Lift, pour, check, close. It's the opposite of frantic. And without any fanfare, something inside you loosens. You've been living like your inner storerooms are empty, like you're always about to run out of time, out of energy, out of yourself. Standing here, surrounded by oil and honey, you remember another possibility. You can store goodness. You can save warmth for later. You can build a small reserve of calm and draw from it when the weather turns. You step back toward the corridor, letting cool air brush your skin like reassurance. The palace keeps its sunlight and clay. You can keep yours in quieter ways, a slow breath, a remembered taste of olive bread, the painted eye of a bull that refuses to panic. And as you leave the storerooms, you carry that measured calm with you, as if it's been ladled gently into your chest and sealed there, safe for the next time you need it. You step out of the storerooms and let the air warm again, slowly, as if your body is being eased back to the surface after a quiet dive. The corridor breathes cool stone behind you, but ahead you sense a different kind of energy, still calm, still controlled, yet brighter in its purpose. The palace isn't only a place where things are kept. It's a place where things become. The sounds arrive first, a soft thump of clay being set down, a faint scrape of wood against stone, the whisper of thread moving through fingers. None of it is loud enough to disturb the night. It's the gentle hum of skilled work, the kind that doesn't need applause. You enter a cluster of workshops arranged like small worlds around the courtyard's heart. Lamplight pools over benches and low platforms. The air holds mixed scents, wet clay, warmed wax, a metallic tang like rain on stone, and somewhere under it, the faint sweetness of dyed fiber. You drift toward the potters. A wheel sits low to the ground, simple and solid. Someone's foot works it with unhurried rhythm, and the wheel turns with a steady confidence. Clay rises under hands like a thought forming, formless at first, then coaxed into shape through pressure and patience. You watch fingers glide up the spinning surface, thumbs anchoring, palms guiding, water smoothing. The clay responds immediately, softening, narrowing, opening, like it wants to be understood. The motion is hypnotic. Round and round, just like the grinding stone earlier, but now the repetition makes space instead of flour. A vessel grows, a belly for holding, a neck for pouring, a rim for sealing. The potter's hands are slick with slip, and lamplight makes them shine like they've been dipped in moon. Your breathing follows the wheel. In, out, the clay keeps turning. Your mind slows to match it. You realize how rare it is to watch something become, step by step, without interruption. Nearby, finished pots sit drying, some plain, some painted with patterns that echo the palace's larger art. Spirals like waves, lines like reeds, dots like seeds. They're not just pretty. They're functional beauty, the kind you can lift, fill, and trust. You move on, drawn by a quieter shimmer. On a low table, thin sheets of metal catch the lamplight, gold, warm and soft looking even when you know it's not. Someone works with tiny tools, a flat stone anvil, small hammers, a pointed implement for scoring. The sound is barely there, a delicate tap-tap, like rain learning manners. Gold dust clings to fingertips and the creases of skin. It looks like something mythic, but the craft is practical. The metal is pressed, bent, refined. A small ornament takes shape, nothing extravagant, just careful. A loop. A curve. A tiny disc that could hang near a collarbone and glint when someone turns their head, turning ordinary movement into light. You find yourself thinking about the contrast, bowls painted in bold strokes on walls, and here, gold shaped in tiny whispers. The palace holds both the grand and the intimate, the public story and the private detail. A faint smell of heated wax drifts from a corner, and you follow it to a small area where someone prepares seals. Clay lumps are rolled, pressed, marked. The same kind of impressions you saw in the storerooms, practical signatures that say, "This is mine, this is counted, this is true." In a world without frantic digital passwords, identity is pressed into earth with steady hands. And then, like a soft tide, the loom work draws you. You hear it before you see it, the whisper of thread under tension, the gentle click of a shuttle passing through. The loom stands tall, wooden frame firm and simple, strings stretched like harp lines. Someone sits close, posture relaxed but attentive, and guides the thread through with repetitive grace. Over, under. Over, under. The pattern builds slowly, line by line, the way calm builds, one small choice repeated until it becomes a state. Dyed yarn sits nearby in bundles. Deep red, like pomegranate again. A cool blue, like the fresco's surviving pigment. A pale cream, like undyed linen. A faint yellow that makes you think of saffron. The colors don't scream. They glow softly in lamplight, like embers banked for the night. You watch the cloth grow, and something in you relaxes more. It's hard to stay anxious while witnessing patient creation. Anxiety wants speed, craft wants time. Anxiety wants an immediate answer. Weaving asks you to accept the slow reveal. You become aware of your hands again, still faintly dusted with flour, now wanting to touch thread, to feel texture, to ground yourself in something that isn't smooth glass and endless scrolling. One of the locals sets a small scrap of woven cloth near you, plain but sturdy. You brush it with your fingertips and feel the roughness, the tiny bumps where threads cross. It's not soft yet. It's honest. It's the beginning of softness. You imagine it being worn, washed, softened over months of use, becoming gentler through living. That thought feels strangely comforting. Softness isn't always immediate. Sometimes it's earned quietly. Across the workshop, someone stirs pigment in a shallow dish, crushing mineral into powder, adding water, mixing until color becomes paint. The scent is faintly earthy, chalky. A brush is dipped. A line is tested on a scrap. You don't see the final painting, but you see the method, the care, the refusal to waste effort. The palace isn't magical because it's ancient. It's magical because it's full of people who know how to make things with attention. And attention, you're learning, is a kind of love without words. You stand there in the gentle weave of sounds, wheel turning, hammer tapping, loom whispering, and you feel your thoughts settle into the same pattern. Over, under. Over, under. One breath, then another. One moment, then the next. You leave the workshops with the feeling that something inside you has been rewoven just a little. Your sense of time, your relationship with patience, your willingness to let beauty arrive slowly rather than demand it instantly. The courtyard waits again, and you step toward it carrying the quiet hum of craft like a lullaby stitched into your ribs. You carry the workshop's rhythm back into the open air, and the courtyard feels different now, not because it changes, but because you've been tuned. Your senses are sharper in a softer way. You notice how lamplight rests on stone, how the breeze lifts and settles, how your own footsteps are less apologetic. At the far end of the courtyard, beyond a line of columns, you sense motion that isn't work and isn't rest. It's training. Not frantic, not showy, measured movement practiced until it becomes calm instinct. You drift closer, and the air picks up a faint scent of warm skin and leather. The ground here is packed and swept clean. A few low platforms and smooth stones sit arranged like markers. The space feels intentionally open, as if it's been cleared not for spectacle, but for focus. You see bodies moving, athletic, controlled. Not many. A small group, enough to make the air feel alive without making it loud. Their movements are silent, but not timid. They step, pivot, inhale, exhale. The discipline is visible in the smallest things. How a foot lands without slapping, how a spine stays long, how hands remain relaxed until they're needed. And then the bulls again, only this time, not painted, not imagined, but present in the way the training references them. A long wooden frame stands to one side, and nearby, a sturdy padded structure suggests the shape of horns. It's not an animal. It's a lesson, an echo of danger made safe enough to practice with. You feel your pulse perk up, just slightly. Your body recognizes risk even when risk is symbolic. You stay at the edge of the space, respectful, letting your presence be small. Your breathing remains slow, but your attention sharpens. You watch a trainee approach the frame with careful steps. They don't rush toward it like someone trying to prove bravery. They approach like someone listening. The movement begins with breath. Inhale, shoulders low. Exhale, knees soften. The trainee's body becomes an instrument, tuned through repetition. They step in, hands light, touch the frame, then step away. Again. Again. Each time the touch is a little surer, the timing a little cleaner. You realize that what you're watching is not a stunt. It's relationship with fear. Fear made manageable through ritual. The courtyard around you stays quiet, but inside this training space there's a different kind of hush, focused, concentrated. The silence isn't empty, it's full of listening. Every shift of weight speaks. Every breath marks time. A local who's been near you, one of the calm guides you've come to trust, moves slightly, and with a small gesture invites you to stand a bit closer, still at the edge, still safe. You step forward and feel the packed earth under your feet, firm and forgiving. You watch another trainee practice a leap, not high, not dramatic, just enough to clear a low marker. They land softly, knees bending to absorb impact, and you feel something in your own legs respond, like your body remembers it was built to move, not just to sit and hold stress. The training shifts into balance work. A person stands on a smooth stone, foot placed carefully, arms loose. They hold still. Not frozen, but poised. Their gaze is steady. Breath stays slow. You realize how hard that is, to hold without tensing. to be ready without bracing. It hits you quietly that this is the same lesson you've been learning all night. Bread taught you to accept. Storerooms taught you to prepare. Workshops taught you to be patient. Now this teaches you to balance. The bull motif, painted on walls, shaped into training tools, becomes a metaphor you can feel in your muscles, strength without panic, power without frenzy, courage without performance. You notice a small detail that makes you exhale in amusement. The trainees, for all their athletic control, still have human clumsiness around the edges. A foot adjusts. A hand shakes out tension. A posture resets after a wobble. Nobody shames anyone. Nobody tries to look perfect. They simply repeat, patiently, until the body learns. Your modern brain wants to turn it into a productivity hack. Here's how to become fearless in 5 steps. Here's the secret ritual to optimize your balance. It's cute, but you let it go. The truth is simpler and slower. You become steady by practicing steadiness. A trainee approaches the horn-shaped padding, places their hands lightly, then moves around it in a clean arc, step, pivot, step, keeping distance, maintaining awareness. The movement suggests a dance with danger, but the face stays calm. The body reads the space like a map. You feel your own breath sinking again, slow and deliberate. A moment comes when the training pauses. Bodies relax, but not collapse. Hands wipe sweat with the backs of wrists. A small cup of water is passed, sipped, handed back. The moment is quiet and practical, like the storeroom's measuring, care for the body, care for the process. Your guide turns slightly, as if checking you. You realize you've been standing with your jaw unclenched, your shoulders low, your hands loose. That alone feels like a victory. You almost laugh, because the idea of winning at relaxation is absurd, yet here you are, doing it. As the training resumes, you step back again to the courtyard's edge, letting the scene become part of the night's tapestry. Painted bulls on walls, real bodies practicing balance, and you in the middle, learning that calm is not the absence of power. Calm is power, held quietly. You leave the training space with a new softness in your gait, as if your feet have learned to land more gently on the world. And somewhere behind you, the rhythm of breath and balance continues, steady as a heartbeat under stone. You step away from the training space with your pulse settled again, not dulled, just smoothed, like a river after it's passed over stones. The courtyard's open center waits, wide and calm, but your guide's quiet presence steers you toward a path that feels different from ovens and looms and practice markers. The air changes first. It thickens with a faint resinous sweetness, like pine warmed under a slow sun, even though it's night. It's incense, subtle, not choking, the kind that doesn't demand your attention so much as it invites your breathing to lengthen. You follow the scent under a line of columns where shadows gather like velvet. The columns here feel more ceremonial, not because they're taller, but because the space around them has been kept clear in a particular way. Footprints are fewer. Dust lies more evenly, undisturbed. The palace, for all its everyday work, has pockets where attention becomes reverence. Near a low platform, a symbol appears, double-bladed, balanced, carved or painted into stone and plaster. The labrys. Its shape is simple and symmetrical, and because it is simple, your eyes rest on it easily. It feels like an emblem of order, 2 edges held in one handle, 2 directions made one. You don't need a lecture to understand its emotional effect. Symmetry calms the mind. Balance reassures the body. The labyrinth sits there like a quiet promise that not everything is chaos. A small clay lamp burns nearby, flame steady, modest, refusing to flicker theatrically. The light makes the symbol glow softly, and you feel your own thoughts dim in response. You've spent a whole day, maybe a whole week, being chased by jagged feelings. Here, the edges are clean and controlled. The locals who move in this space do so differently. Their steps are slower. Their hands are quieter. Even their breathing seems more deliberate, as if they're careful not to spill the mood. They don't look tense. They look tuned. You follow them along a path between columns, and the incense grows slightly stronger. It threads through the air and into your clothes, mixing with the earlier bread smoke and olive scent. The result is surprisingly comforting, like the palace is layering you with invisible garments, nourishment, craft, courage, and now something softer, meaning. You come to a small arrangement of objects on a low stone surface. Not cluttered, not ornate. A shallow bowl. A few dried leaves. A small pile of herbs. A stone that looks chosen rather than random, smooth and pale. The simplicity is the point. This is not about impressing anyone. It's about focusing. You stand at a respectful distance, and your guide makes a small motion that feels like permission to simply be still. You let your arms hang. You let your jaw soften. You let your eyes take in the lamplight pooling over the bowl. Someone, quiet, careful, places a pinch of resin onto a warm ember. The scent rises instantly, fuller now, like the forest exhaling. The smoke is thin and pale, curling upward in slow spirals that look almost deliberate, as if it has rehearsed. It drifts toward the columns, touches stone, then disperses. Your breathing follows it. Inhale, slow. Exhale, slower. You notice how your body responds to ritual even without explanation. The slow movement. The deliberate placement. The scent. The steady flame. Your nervous system recognizes the pattern. This is a safe moment. This is not a moment where something will jump out and demand an immediate answer. The locals move along a route that traces the architecture in a gentle loop, between pillar, past low platform, around a corner where the wall holds faded color. You follow, not close, not intrusive, just present. The path feels like a thread being laid down, stitching you into the palace's quieter fabric. As you walk, you see more symbols, curving motifs, small painted marks, a repeated double edge here and there. Nothing screams. Everything whispers. The palace communicates in quiet repetition, like weaving again, over, under. Over, under. You pause at a point where the floor dips slightly. The air here is cooler. The scent of incense is stronger. A draft slides through, and the smoke bends, making a lazy wave. You watch it and feel your thoughts loosen their grip. Your mind stops clenching around meaning and simply observes. It's strange how restful it is, this non-grabbing attention. Most days you look at things and immediately turn them into tasks. Identify. Interpret. Respond. Here, you let the symbol be a symbol. You let the smoke be smoke. You let your breath be breath. A cheeky part of your brain tries to joke. Ah yes, ancient self-care. Surely this is where you unlock your inner goddess and everything becomes aesthetic. but the joke fades because the atmosphere is too steady to bounce off. The sarcasm turns gentle. It becomes a soft smile instead of a defense. You notice, in the dimness, how the columns frame the courtyard beyond. Through gaps, you glimpse the open square where you ate bread, where you watched training, where you felt the painted bull's gaze. This sacred path doesn't cut you off from the ordinary life of the palace. It loops through it. It suggests something you've forgotten in modern living. Meaning isn't separate from daily work. It's braided into it. Someone refreshes the ember again. The resin melts, and the smoke thickens for a moment, then thins. The scent settles into your hair, your collar, your skin. You feel like you're being gently marked, not owned, just included. You reach a point where the path returns you to the column's edge, and your guide slows, letting you stop. The Labrys symbol appears again, now from another angle. Still balanced, still calm, still quietly sharp. You understand, not with words but with body, that this palace doesn't only teach you how to eat, store, make, and move. It teaches you how to be still with intention, how to let your mind rest on something steady, how to let ritual soften the sharp corners of thought. You step back toward the courtyard carrying that scent of resin and the image of a double blade held in balance. It feels like a small internal tool, something you can use later, when your day tries to split you into frantic pieces. And as you leave the sacred path, the incense continues to drift behind you, slow as sleep, curling into the dark like a promise that calm can be practiced. You step away from the last curl of incense and let the courtyard's open air rinse your senses clean, as if the night itself is a basin. The resin sweetness still clings to you anyway, caught in your collar, tucked behind your ears, so you carry it like a quiet signature. Painted bulls remain somewhere behind the columns, bakery warmth still remembered in your palms, and the Labrys' balanced shape lingers in your mind as an inner posture. Your guide's calm attention shifts again, steering you toward a part of the palace that feels less like story and more like cleverness made physical. The air cools by degrees. Shadows deepen. And then you notice it, water not loud, not splashing, but present, moving with purpose. You follow the faint sound into a corridor where stone seems to change texture under lamplight. The floor is subtly sloped, almost imperceptible, like the building is gently teaching gravity how to behave. Along the edges, narrow channels run, shallow grooves cut with care. In the dimness they could pass for decoration, until you see how they gather moisture and guide it onward. This place doesn't merely tolerate water. It directs it. A thin trickle slides along one groove, catching light in brief flashes before disappearing into a darker opening. It reappears farther along, as if the palace is quietly breathing through hidden veins. You can't help a sleepy little smirk from modern buildings that still act surprised when rain exists. A stone basin sits in a recess, its rim worn smooth the way a river polishes rock. Above it, a spout-like opening hints at where water arrives. You imagine terracotta pipes tucked inside walls and under floors, clay arteries carrying coolness where it's needed. Nothing here feels accidental. Comfort has been planned, then quietly maintained. Your guide leads you a few steps downward into deeper shade. The temperature drops and your skin notices immediately, grateful in that simple way bodies are grateful. The air holds the clean mineral scent of damp stone, like the moment after rain when dust finally stops trying to own everything. You reach a sunken space with steps descending, an interior basin set below floor level. The geometry is calm, straight lines, right angles, a space designed for deliberate movement. Coolness gathers here, held by stone. You stand on the steps and feel what it's for, even without explanation. Slow down, rinse, reset. In a world that loves frantic momentum, this is a built-in permission slip. When you climb back up, your guide draws your gaze to a vertical cut between walls, a light well. It rises like a narrow canyon, its sides pale, its edges sharp enough to catch moonlight. You look up and see a slice of sky framed by stone, a few stars pinned there like quiet punctuation. Cool air drifts down the shaft and slides over your face. You realize the palace doesn't rely on brute force to stay comfortable. It uses shape. It funnels light downward in day, funnels air through always, persuading wind to move where people live. You walk beside the light well and feel the gentle draft, steady and modest, like someone fanning you without making a fuss about it. As you continue, the palace teaches you microclimates. A corner warmed by stored daylight. A corridor kept cool by thickness and shade. A threshold where air shifts just enough to make you breathe deeper. You feel each change on your skin, and the changes feel deliberate, quiet engineering, disguised as a pleasant walk. Along another passage, round openings sit neatly bordered in the floor, placed where the slope naturally leads. Channels feed toward them like small roads. Your guide traces an invisible line in the air, how runoff would travel, how it would be caught and carried away, how the palace can take weather's tantrums and turn them into a manageable stream. It's oddly reassuring to be in a place that plans for mess. Modern life often pretends you should stay perfectly composed and dry, then acts offended when stress leaks everywhere. Here, the building simply admits what's true: water happens. So it gives water somewhere to go. You pause where a faint drip falls into stone at long intervals. One soft sound, then silence, then another. The rhythm is slow enough to count breaths between. Your inhale expands into the quiet. Your exhale matches the drop. It becomes a private metronome, the palace offering you time in clean, measured portions. You move on, passing walls thick enough to hold coolness like a secret. Shade pools there, deep and clean. The earlier resin scent in your clothes mixes with damp stone, and the blend is strangely comforting, ritual and practicality braided together. By the time you angle back toward the courtyard, you understand something your body has known all along. Peace isn't only a mood. Sometimes it's construction. It's a floor tilted by a careful hand. It's a groove cut to carry overflow. It's a shaft open to pull light and air into the center of life. You step into the open square again, and the night air feels gentler than before. The painted bull's calm strength makes more sense now, because you've seen another kind of strength, the quiet, invisible power of good design. You breathe in, and it feels like the palace breathes with you, stone, water, light, and air arranged to make rest possible. You breathe out, carrying the lesson forward. When life spills, you can learn to channel it, rather than drown in it. You return to the courtyard with the feeling that your whole body has been quietly adjusted, your breathing smoothed by incense, your appetite anchored by bread, your patience rewoven by looms, your steadiness trained by balance. Even the palace's water channels have whispered their practical wisdom into you. Make room for spillover, and life stops feeling like an emergency. You stand for a moment under the open sky, letting the courtyard's calm settle over you like a thin blanket. Moonlight pools on stone. Columns cast long, clean shadows. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl does what owls do, existing with purpose and zero interest in your stress. And then it happens, a small absence. It's nothing dramatic. No thunderclap. No sudden panic. Just a quiet moment when your hand moves by habit toward your body, toward the place you've been touching without thinking, and meets nothing. A token. Something small you've been carrying. Not priceless, not flashy, but yours in the way personal objects become part of your nervous system. Maybe a simple charm on a cord, a smooth bead, a carved bit of wood. Something that has lived in your pocket or around your wrist. Something your fingers have been rolling when your mind tries to run away. A modern comfort, a tiny anchor. Your fingertips search again, slower. Still nothing. At first, your brain tries denial. It must be there. You must have just missed it. Your hand checks a different pocket, then the same pocket again, as if reality might change out of politeness. Your body stays calm for a beat, because this palace has been teaching you calm all night. Then the edge of unease begins to rise. Not a wave. A ripple. You scan the courtyard floor. Packed earth and stone. Shadows. The faint gleam of lamplight near a pillar. Nothing catches your eye. Your mind starts offering its favorite catastrophes. You lost it forever, you're careless. You can't keep anything. Of course this happens. The usual cruel little slideshow. You recognize it. You don't let it drive. You inhale slowly, and you remember the storerooms. Count. Measure. Don't panic. You remember the training space. Balance. Breathe. You remember the water channels. Find the direction of the spill. Guide it. So you treat the problem like the palace would, gently, systematically. First, you locate the last moment you're sure you had it. You don't force the memory. You invite it. You close your eyes for half a second and let sensations surface. Bread warmth. Flour on fingertips. The cool damp air near the drains. The resin smoke curling up by the labrie's symbol. The touch of woven cloth. Your fingers rolling the token while watching the potter's wheel turn. Yes, there. In the workshops. You can feel it. The comforting weight shifting in your palm as the loom whispered. You open your eyes. You're still in the courtyard. The workshops are not far. The path between is quiet and familiar now, like you've already walked it 100 times. You start moving, slow and attentive, letting the courtyard's open center fall behind you. Your guide's presence shifts nearby, not intrusive, just aware. They don't speak. They don't rush you. They simply adjust their pace to yours, and that steadiness is a kind of reassurance. Small losses can be handled. As you retrace your steps, you keep your gaze low, scanning the ground. The trick is not to stare with panic, because panic makes you blind. You look the way someone looks for something delicate, patiently, kindly, with soft eyes. You pass the column where the lamp burns steady. You check the base, where shadows gather. You see a few pebbles, a scrap of dried leaf, a pinch of dust. No token. You keep going. The corridor toward the workshops feels cooler, and the scent of clay and fiber returns as you near it. The familiar smells are calming. They tell you you're close, even if you're not sure to what. Inside the workshop area, the wheel is still. The looms are quieter now, as if the palace is settling deeper into night. The gold worker's bench holds its faint metallic tang. You walk slowly along the edges, scanning the floor near benches, near baskets, near the low table where dyed yarn rested. Your mind tries to speed up. You don't let it. You move at the pace of the potter's wheel, steady rotation, steady attention. You remember how the locals handled the bread. No rushing, no hoarding. You adopt the same energy. You are not grabbing for your token. You are welcoming it back if it's here. You pause where you touched the woven scrap earlier. You crouch, and your knees complain quietly, because modern life has made you forget you own joints. You ignore them with calm. You look beneath a low bench. You shift your weight, and the lamplight catches something small, just for a second, then it's gone again as you move. Your heart perks. Not panic, alertness. You adjust your angle, leaning closer, and there it is, a tiny glint nestled near the bench's foot, half hidden by dust. The token. It looks smaller than you remember, which is how all lost things feel when they're found, like they were never big enough to deserve that much worry, and yet somehow they were. You reach toward it slowly, not because it will run away, but because you're practicing gentleness. Your fingers close around it, and the familiar weight lands in your palm like a sigh. Relief spreads through you, quiet and warm. Not dramatic. Just a soft loosening behind the ribs. You turn it between your fingers. It's intact. It's real. It's yours again. And in that moment, you notice something even more important than the token's return. The small problem didn't break the night. It didn't throw you back into frantic self-judgment. You handled it the way this palace has been teaching you, with breath, with patience, with a steady method. Your guide's presence lingers near you, and you sense their calm approval, not applause, just a shared understanding. Things get lost. Things return. The world stays wide and gentle. You slip the token back into your pocket, or tie it more securely, whichever fits, and your fingers rest there for a second, not clinging, just acknowledging. Then you stand and begin walking back toward the courtyard, carrying not only your little anchor, but the deeper lesson: you can lose something without losing yourself. You turn the small thing in your palm as you walk, feeling its edges, its weight, the way it catches lamplight, and the first wave of relief begins to thin. Not vanish. Just thin. Because your real token has a certain familiarity your fingers know without thinking. A smoother curve, a warmer density, a tiny nick on one side that your thumb always finds when you're stressed. This object doesn't have that nick. It doesn't sit in your grip the same way. It feels like a cousin, not the person you were actually looking for. You stop under a column and let the lamplight fall across it. Bronze, maybe? A small bead, a fastening piece, something that belongs to the workshops. A practical fragment that's been dropped and forgotten. Useful, but not yours. Your chest tightens for a moment, not because you're in danger, but because your brain hates unfinished loops. Of course the palace gives you a lesson, then gives you homework. You breathe in slowly, the way the incense path taught you. You breathe out, the way the training space taught you. You let disappointment pass through without letting it become a story about your character. Things can be annoying without being tragic. A missing token is not a prophecy. It's just missing. So you keep searching, And you do it the way this place prefers, gently, methodically, like you're walking through a labyrinth designed to calm you rather than punish you. You begin with your senses. First, scent. You stand still and let the air tell you where you are. The workshop corner holds clay and damp earth and faint metal. The bakery corner, farther off, still whispers smoke and grain. The sacred path carries resin and dried herbs. You let those scents become signposts, each one a soft arrow pointing toward familiarity. Then light. You remember the light well, the narrow canyon of sky framed by stone. You remember how cool air slides down it. You angle your steps toward that draft, because drafts are honest. They don't pretend. They go where openings are. If you can find that light well again, you can anchor your map. And then memory. Not the frantic kind that grabs and shakes you. The quieter kind that replays sensations, your fingers rolling the token while watching a potter's wheel. The brief pause by dyed yarn. The moment you touch the woven scrap. The time you stepped aside to let someone pass. You let those moments line up like footprints. You move into a corridor that bends, then bends again. The palace doesn't do straight lines as a favor to your modern need for efficiency. It does turns like a slow dance, letting space unfold in stages. You pass a faded mural, blue that still looks cool, red that still holds heat, and you use it as a marker. Painted wave border, then the narrow stair, bold flank detail, then the low threshold. You keep your gaze low for the token, but you also keep it wide for orientation. The trick is to search without shrinking. When you shrink, panic grows. When you widen, the world becomes navigable. Your footsteps soften without you forcing them. Packed earth gives slightly. Stone holds firm. A little grit shifts under your soul. You skin corners where small things collect, along wall edges, near the feet of benches, and the shallow dips where dust gathers. You check the places your own body tends to shed objects, where you leaned, where you crouched, where your pocket might have turned. You pass the basin where you rinsed your hands earlier, and the faint smell of water and stone steadies you. A slow drip ticks somewhere deeper in the palace, and you follow that rhythm for a few steps, letting it pace your breathing. 1 drop. 3 breaths. 1 drop. 3 breaths. It's not magic. It's just structure, and structure is soothing. A corridor opens into a small chamber where the air is cooler. Here, the floor slopes so subtly you can barely see it, but your body feels it, gravity nudging, guiding. A thin channel runs along the edge, like a line drawn for water. You crouch and check the channel anyway, because small objects love to hide where currents would carry them. Nothing but dust and a tiny dried leaf. You stand, and for a moment you're not sure which way leads back to the courtyard. It's the mildest form of disorientation, no fear, just that blank pause where your brain reaches for a familiar sign and finds only stone. The palace, with its turns and passages, could easily become a trap for a mind that's already tired. You feel the temptation to hurry, to pick a direction at random and hope. Instead, you do something almost absurdly simple. You stop. You listen. You smell. From somewhere, faintly, you catch bread smoke again, soft, warm, distant. From somewhere else, the resin scent drifts like a thread. And beneath both, you feel the cooler draft that suggests the light well. 3 compass points. You choose the one that brings you back to the center, toward the bread smoke and open air. You walk slowly, and the palace begins to show you its breadcrumbs. A familiar column with a small lamp niche. A wall corner where paint survives in a spiral. A scuffed threshold that your foot remembers stepping over. The sense of being lost dissolves into the quieter reality. You weren't lost, you were just between markers. As you pass another mural panel, your eyes catch a glint near the base of the wall, tiny, brief, the way lamplight catches mica in stone. You pause. Your heart lifts, but you keep it gentle. You lower yourself carefully, knees soft, and brush aside a thin layer of dust. It's another small object, too small, too sharp-edged. A sliver of metal, maybe a pin, maybe a bit of fastener. Not your token. Useful to someone, but not your anchor. You don't curse the palace. You simply breathe out, place it back, and let your hand rest for a moment on the cool floor, grounding yourself in the reality that you are still calm, even when you don't get what you want. You stand and continue, and the air shifts again. A breeze threads through the corridor, not the steady, architectural draft of a light well, but something broader, restless. It carries a faint dampness, the first hint of weather turning. The scent of rain arrives before rain does, like a quiet warning. You reach the courtyard edge and look up. The sky has changed texture. Clouds move across the stars, dark and layered. The night feels heavier, as if it's gathering itself. Somewhere far off, thunder mutters, not loud, just a low rumble rolling under the world. The locals are already adjusting. Lamps are checked. Loose cloth is gathered. Movements become slightly quicker without losing their calm. The palace doesn't panic. It prepares. You pat your pocket again, feeling the absence of your real token, feeling the small workshop bead you accidentally rescued, and you accept the unfinishedness for now. The storm is coming, and the search will have to continue through wind and rain and creaking stone. You step closer to shelter, letting the courtyard's open space narrow behind you, and you carry two truths at once. You still haven't found what you came for, and you are still steady. The night thickens. The first cool gust slides across the courtyard floor. And the palace, patient as ever, readies itself to meet the weather with the same quiet competence it uses for everything else. The breeze deepens into something with intent. It doesn't simply pass through the courtyard. It tests corners, slips under roof edges, and presses against columns. Above you, clouds thicken until the stars look politely dismissed. Thunder arrives as a low roll, not a jump scare, more like the sky clearing its throat. Your modern instincts try to label it as trouble. The palace treats it as weather. The locals respond before the storm fully commits. A lamp wick is trimmed so the flame stays modest. A clay lid is pressed down and sealed. Linen is folded and moved away from an open edge. Someone checks a latch with calm certainty, thorough rather than afraid. You tense anyway, because your nervous system loves being the unpaid manager of everything. Your hand slides to your pocket for the missing token and meets the wrong object. The little workshop bead you picked up by mistake. The timing is almost funny, the sky rumbling, your pocket offering you a substitute. Thunder rolls again, closer, and you feel it in your ribs. The courtyard stone answers with steadiness. Channels and drains sit ready like patient hands prepared to catch whatever spills. Then the first drops arrive. They tap one by one, darkening the stone in tiny circles that bloom and vanish. The air shifts instantly. cooler, cleaner, sharp with the mineral scent of dust finally surrendering. You inhale and feel your chest loosen a fraction, because rain has this strange authority. It makes everything honest. The locals guide you under shelter without touching you, simply by moving where shelter is. Under the roof corridor, the sound of rain softens, filtered, like noise turned down low. It drums on the roof in a steady pattern, fingertips on wood, until your breathing starts matching it without your permission. Outside, the courtyard begins to shine. Water finds the sloped edges and starts traveling along the channels in thin, purposeful streams. You remember the light wells and subtle gradients in the floor. Now you get to watch the plan work. Rain thickens into a steady sheet. The palace creaks once, softly, not in distress, more like an old body shifting its weight. Your mind tries to narrate it as ominous, because your mind enjoys drama when it isn't the one paying the repair bill. The structure holds. A sharper crack of thunder lands and you flinch. Your shoulders jump, jaw tightening in that reflex you've carried through too many unpredictable days. You look at the locals again. They don't freeze. They simply continue, adjusting lamps, moving small items from dripping edges, stepping around puddles with patient economy. Their calm gives you permission to be calm without denying reality. You set your palm on the wall beside you. The stone is cool and slightly damp, steady in a way screens never manage. You breathe in slowly, tasting wet limestone. You breathe out longer, letting your shoulders fall another notch. Runoff strengthens. You hear a faint gurgle as a drain accepts its work. Water threads along the grooves, straightening where a slope guides it, then vanishing into a dark opening. The palace behaves like a living system: receive, channel, release. And that's when your missing token returns to your mind with a sharper outline. Small objects don't disappear into thin air. They roll. They slip toward edges. They obey gravity and slope. In the open courtyard, with rain pushing everything toward the channels, your token could have traveled, quietly, efficiently, into the same infrastructure that keeps the palace comfortable. The thought tightens your chest, but it's not panic. It's clear, practical urgency. You do not dash into the rain like a tragic hero auditioning for a myth. Timing matters. You let the storm do what storms do, and you prepare for the right moment. A local crouches near the corridor edge, reaching into a shallow groove to clear a few leaves. Their fingers move through the flow as calmly as if rinsing a bowl. The stream straightens and speeds. You watch, and you learn. Small maintenance prevents big trouble. You crouch too, staying under cover, and study the water's route. Your eyes trace it into memory: courtyard center, gentle slope, narrow channel, round opening, along with the nearest column base and a chipped stone beside the drain. Later, when the rain eases, you'll return here without guessing. While you wait, you roll the workshop bead between your fingers and let it be what it is, not your anchor, just a reminder that you're still capable of holding something lightly. You imagine your real token caught for a moment in silt, then settling somewhere reachable, and you practice the palace's patience. Store the worry, seal it, come back when conditions are kind. Thunder begins to move away, rolling toward the hills like a tired animal turning over in its sleep. The rain remains steady, but the gusts soften. The air cools further, and the scent of wet earth rises stronger. You stand again and let the rain become your lullaby. It fills every gap, smoothing the sharp corners of thought. Your palm rests on the stone for one more quiet second, borrowing its calm. You are still missing a small thing. The sky is still making noise. Water is still running where it is meant to run. And you are still steady, breathing, observing, learning how to stay soft inside weather. Under the covered corridor, with the courtyard shining and draining in disciplined silence, you wait, patient, alert, unhurried, until the night calms enough for you to search again. The rain begins to thin the way a heavy thought thins after you finally exhale it, slowly, reluctantly, but with an unmistakable shift. The drumming on the roof becomes lighter, more spaced out. The courtyard shine remains, though, and the channels still carry water with quiet determination, like they've been given a job and intend to finish it properly. Thunder retreats into distance, a low murmur now. The air smells clean, stone and damp earth, olive leaves rinse bright. Your skin feels cooled, as if the storm has wiped a warm cloth over the whole night. Your guide moves first, stepping out from the corridor edge with measured care. No rushing. No dramatic. All clear. Just a calm return to motion. The locals begin their quiet resets, checking lamps, nudging small puddles toward the drains with a broom of bundled reeds, lifting a cloth so it can dry. The palace transitions from storm to after storm without complaint. You follow, not into the middle of the courtyard yet, but toward the spot you marked in your mind, the chipped stone beside the drain, the nearest column base, the channel line that led water where it needed to go. When you step out onto the courtyard floor, your sandals would have slipped, if you were wearing sandals. Instead, your modern shoes find the wet stone, and you compensate with that new balance you watched earlier. Knees soft, weight centered, attention wide. You move slowly, because the palace has taught you that slow is not weakness. Slow is precision. Water still threads along the groove at the edge of the courtyard. It's thinner now, but persistent. Tiny leaves and grit travel with it. You crouch under a column's shelter, then extend your hand toward the channel, fingers hovering above the current. Your mind tries to speed your hand. You slow it deliberately. Small objects can be swept away easily if you're careless. You remember the storeroom's measure. You remember the workshops, shaped gently. You remember the drains, guide the flow. You trace the groove with your eyes until it reaches the drain opening, a round, dark mouth cut into the stone, bordered by a rim smoothed by use. The opening is small enough to protect, large enough to swallow a token without apology. You feel a flicker of annoyance at gravity, which is a ridiculous thing to be annoyed at, but you allow yourself the feeling anyway. It's human. Then you turn the annoyance into action. A local appears beside you with a simple tool, a thin reed or narrow stick, smooth and flexible. They don't shove it at you like a solution. They place it near your hand, an offering of method. Their presence is calm, as if to say, yes, this is solvable. No, you don't need to wrestle the universe. You take the reed and test it against the drain rim, careful not to snap it. The water murmurs as it slips around the stick. You angle the reed into the opening, gently, feeling for any resistance. Stone inside is slick. A little silt shifts. You withdraw and see damp grit clinging to the reed's tip. Not yet. You try again, changing the angle. You slide it along the inner curve, slow and steady, like searching a pocket you can't see into. The reed bumps something, soft then firm. Your pulse lifts. You stop, because excitement makes clumsy hands. You breathe in. You breathe out. You nudge again, delicately. The reed tip catches, then releases. Something small moves with the water toward the edge of the opening. A faint glint appears for half a second, then vanishes again as the current pulls it back. You do not curse. You do not lunge. You simply adjust, because the palace has been teaching you quiet competence all night. You angle the reed to block the current slightly, creating a tiny pocket of stillness. Water slides around your improvised barrier. In that calmer pocket, the small object settles closer to the rim. You reach in with 2 fingers, slow as sleep, and pinch. Metal, warm from your skin instantly. Smooth. Familiar. You lift it out into lamplight and your chest loosens in one long, grateful release. It's your token, the real one. The one with the tiny nick your thumb always finds. The one your hand has been searching for like it was searching for permission to relax. It looks almost ordinary now, wet, slightly dulled by grit, smaller than your worry made it. But when you roll it between your fingers, your body recognizes it and settles, as if an internal latch has clicked closed. You rinse it quickly in a shallow puddle of clean runoff, letting water wash away silt. The token brightens again, catching lamplight with a soft, steady gleam. You rub it on your sleeve and feel the familiar weight return fully, like a heartbeat you forgot you were listening for. Your guide's calm presence remains beside you for a moment. No celebration. No fuss. Just a shared quietness that says, yes. There it is. You did it. You slip the token into a more secure place. Tuck deeper, tied tighter, then press your palm lightly against it through fabric. Not a clutch. A confirmation. When you stand, the courtyard looks different again. Not because it's suddenly sunny or dry. It's still wet, still shining, still smelling of rain, but because the small problem has resolved in the gentlest possible way. You didn't fight the storm. You waited, watched, learned, then acted with care. The locals return to their quiet tasks, and you feel yourself rejoin the palace's rhythm. Bread warmth returns to memory. Incense sweetness returns to your collar. The painted bull's calm strength feels closer, as if you're now part of the same silent story. And for a moment, standing in wet lamplight with your tokens safely kept, you feel something deeper than relief. You feel trust, in the palace's design, in the local steadiness, in your own ability to stay calm when something small goes missing. You turn back toward the warmer, safer corridor, and the night meets you with clean air and softened sound. The storm has passed. The token is back. And your body, at last, believes that things can go wrong without becoming ruin. You walk back toward the courtyard's heart with your token secured, and the satisfaction is quiet, more like a warm stone settling into your pocket than like fireworks. The palace doesn't reward you with sudden brightness. It rewards you with something better, continuity. The same columns. The same open sky, now washed clean. The same painted bulls waiting in their calm. Rainwater still glistens on stone, but it's no longer a threat. It's a sheen, a soft mirror catching lamplight and turning it into gold. The channels carry their last thin streams toward drains, steady and unbothered. The courtyard's air feels cooler, fresher, and the world smells like it just took a deep breath. The locals move through this after-storm quiet with a competence that makes your chest soften again. They check cloths, straighten trays, relight a wick if it needs it. No dramatics, no complaining. Just the calm maintenance that keeps the life running. You realize you've been craving that, an environment where the response to problems is steady care, not panic or blame. You drift along the courtyard's perimeter, letting earlier details return to you in gentle echoes. The bakery corner smells faintly of smoke and warm grain, even though the fire has been banked. The scent is lodged into stone and air like memory. You can almost feel flour dust on your fingertips again, the smooth resistance of dough under your palms, the crackle of crust cooling. That bread is still with you, physically gone, but emotionally present. The workshop's quiet hum has softened into stillness, but you can still hear it in your mind. The potter's wheel turning, the loom whispering, the tiny tap of gold being shaped. Over, under. Over, under. Your breathing still follows that pattern, a small internal weaving. And the incense path, its resin sweetness has mellowed now, less sharp, more like a faint warmth at the back of the air. It clings to your hair and collar, not as perfume, but as atmosphere. You catch it when you turn your head, and it makes your eyes feel heavy in the best way. You find yourself circling back toward the frescoes, drawn again to the painted bulls. After everything you've learned tonight, nourishment, preparation, craft, balance, ritual, problem-solving, the bulls feel like a summary image. Strength held in stillness. Power without frenzy. You enter the corridor where the frescoes rest, and the light is dimmer here, calmer. The colors hold their presence even in shadow. Red curves like a heartbeat. Blue cools the air around it. And the bullseye meets your gaze again, steady and unbothered, as if it has been watching you collect yourself all night. You stand for a long moment and let yourself feel what you don't usually allow, tenderness toward your own tiredness. Not pity. Not drama. Just the simple recognition that you've been carrying too much, too long, and you deserve nights like this, nights that don't ask you to be better, just present. A small, almost amused thought passes through you. You came here expecting history, and you got therapy in stone and bread. Of course. Ancient places don't just teach dates. They teach pace. You step back into the courtyard and look up. Clouds have thinned. Stars return in small clusters, timid at first, then clearer. A breeze moves through the columns and feels clean against your skin. It carries a faint sea salt note again, reminding you that beyond these walls, the coastline is still there, patient and dark. The locals begin to wind down. Lamps are lowered. Trays are cleared. A cloth is draped over a basket. The gestures are slow, softened by the late hour. The palace itself seems to settle, like a large animal folding into sleep. You move with the same gentleness now. Your body knows how to be quiet. Your feet land softly. Your hands don't clench. Your token sits secure, not as a desperate anchor, but as a quiet companion. You don't keep touching it. You don't need to. You trust it's there. You take one last slow round of the open square, letting the courtyard's details sink into you like warm tea. The columns, tapered, strong, slightly flared, stand like patient guardians. The stone underfoot feels cool now, its stored warmth spent, but not unpleasant. The air smells of wet earth and olive leaves, with the faintest trace of honey and smoke. Somewhere a lamp flame flickers, small and steady. You pause near the center again, where you stood at the very beginning before bread and bulls and incense and rain taught you their quiet lessons. You notice how different you feel here now. Not transformed into a new person, just returned. Like you've been gently brought back to yourself. A final breeze slips through, and for a moment you can almost hear the palace's own lullaby. Water draining, stone cooling, cloth settling, distant insects ticking. It's a music of things finishing their day. You breathe in slow. You breathe out slower. Your eyelids feel heavier. The courtyard, washed clean by storm and softened by lamplight, holds you in its wide calm. And you understand that this is what farewell should feel like, not abrupt, not sad, not dramatic. Just a gradual loosening, like hands unclasping gently at the end of a long, kind evening. You begin to drift toward the edge where a path leads out, knowing dawn will come, and you will have to go. But for now, under stars returning and stones settling into night, you let the palace's quiet remain inside you, steady as breath. You leave the courtyard the way you leave a good dream, slowly, with your body trying to memorize the last details before they fade. The night is thinning now. Not gone, just loosening at the edges, as if dawn is gently untying a knot in the sky. The stones under your feet feel cooler, rinsed clean by the storm, and the air carries a fresh, sharp scent, wet earth, olive leaves, and a faint trace of smoke that still lives in your clothes like a quiet souvenir. You take the path along the outer edge of the palace, passing columns that look taller in the dim light, their shadows stretched and softened. Lamps burn lower, flames modest, almost sleepy. The locals move less now, their work mostly finished, their motions slower and fewer, as if the whole place has agreed to speak in whispers until morning arrives. You don't feel pushed out. You feel gently released. Somewhere behind you, water still finds its grooves. A last thin stream slides toward a drain, murmuring softly, then disappearing into the palace's hidden veins. You think of how the building planned for spillover, how it held comfort in its design, and you feel grateful in the simplest way, for structures that make room for human life, including its mess. Your token rests secure, and you let it stay there without checking. You've done enough searching for one night. The point wasn't the object, really. The point was the steadiness you practiced while looking for it, the ability to stay kind to yourself while something small went missing. You carry that steadiness now the way you carry the scent of incense, lightly, but everywhere. The sky brightens by a shade you can barely measure. Black becomes deep blue. Deep blue becomes something softer. A thin line near the horizon pales, as if someone has rubbed chalk across the edge of the world. You pause on a step and look back once more. From here, the courtyard looks like a calm bowl holding the last of the night. Wet stone glints in scattered patches. The open center lies quiet and wide. In your mind, you can still taste olive oil, still feel flour dust on your fingertips, still hear the loom's patient whisper and the rain's steady drumming. The painted bulls are hidden from this angle, but you know they are there, watching with that unbothered eye, reminding you that strength can be silent. You turn forward again and continue. The path leads past low walls and thresholds that now feel familiar, like you've borrowed their shape into your own posture. Your footsteps are soft. Your shoulders stay low. Your breath remains slow enough to feel like a warm current moving through you. The palace has done what it does best. It has taken a tired mind and returned it to a simpler rhythm. As you reach the outer boundary, the olive grove begins to emerge from darkness. Tree trunks appear first, twisted, steady, ancient in their own way. Leaves catch the earliest light and flash pale silver, then settle back into shadow. A breeze moves through them and makes a sound like quiet applause, not for you, but for the morning itself arriving without needing permission. You step onto the path that leads away, and the ground changes from dressed stone to packed earth, slightly damp. Your shoes pick up a fine dust that clings, darkened by rain. You look down and see the faint marks of your steps, temporary, soft-edged, already beginning to blur as moisture rises and the earth relaxes. Your footprints do not carve anything permanent. They simply appear, then fade, the way all good nights fade. The sea is still out there, unseen but sensed. Salt rides the air in a thin, clean line. A distant bird calls once, then the sound dissolves into the wide quiet. You feel your eyelids grow heavier, even as the world brightens, because your body knows the difference between light and rest. Rest is not about darkness. Rest is about safety. You walk a little farther, then slow, letting yourself take in one last cluster of details. The coolness of air on your cheeks, the softness in your jaw, the steady weight of your own breath. You let gratitude settle without making it dramatic. The palace fed you, guided you, steadied you, tested you with a small loss, then returned what was missing in the gentlest way possible. It sent you out clean, rinsed by rain and quiet attention. At the edge of the grove you pause again. Behind you, Knossos sits calm, stone and shadow, already beginning to look like it belongs to the day. Ahead of you, the path opens into a lighter horizon. You don't force a farewell. You simply let your chest soften and allow the leaving to be tender. You don't rush the goodbye, you let it linger, gentle and unclaimed. You take one last slow inhale, tasting olive leaf and damp earth. You exhale, long and unhurried, and with that breath you release the courtyard back to itself. The painted bulls keep their watch. The channels keep their patient work. The looms and ovens and lamps settle into silence. And you carry the quiet with you, like warmth stored in clay, ready for the next time your mind needs shelter. The light keeps lifting, but you don't have to lift with it. You let the morning do its quiet work without asking anything from you. Your steps slow until they almost stop, and the world moves around you. Air, leaf, stone, distant sea, each one softer than the last. You picture the courtyard cooling into a daytime hush, wet stone drying in slow patches, painted bulls waiting in steady silence. You picture jars of oil and honey resting like sunlight kept safe. You picture loom threads lying still, ready for hands that will return when the day is fully awake. Nothing is lost. Nothing is rushed. Your breathing becomes the only thing that matters. In and out, each exhale a little longer, each inhale a little quieter. The muscles in your face loosen. Your tongue rests. Your shoulders feel heavy in the best way, like they've finally stopped holding up the sky. If a thought drifts in, you don't chase it or fight it. You let it float past like a cloud crossing pale blue, and you come back to simple sensations, the coolness at the tip of your nose, the steady rise of your chest, the warmth returning to your hands. You are here. You are safe. You are allowed to rest. The path ahead fades into soft blur, and the grove becomes a shimmer of silver leaves. The sea stays distant and kind, a line of salt in the air. Your token rests, forgotten now, because you no longer need proof that you're steady. You let your eyes close in your mind first, then in your body. The last image is gentle, rain-polished stone, lamp glow, and a courtyard that holds calm the way earth holds roots. Sleep comes without force, without hurry, until you drift, quiet as a whisper, into the dark. End of story. Sweet dreams.